Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock, so I want to start on time. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to you possibly this afternoon, certainly no later than tomorrow. Please submit any questions you have by writing them in the upper right-hand corner. You have an area in there that you should be able to write questions on. And we will answer them on today's webinar if at all possible. Not necessarily as we go along, but at the end we will look and see what questions we have and be sure and answer them. So welcome. This is the Balanced Estate Continuum of Care, January 27 Unsheltered Count Point in Time Survey webinar. Here with me this morning, I'm Carrie Lee Basta with ADOH, and here with me this morning is Candy Stanton. She's been consultant to the Continuum for years. Michelle Meyercourt, our admin assistant, who is assisting me with all the tech stuff, and Joy Johnson, our contract manager. Volunteers are critical to the unsheltered count process, as many communities wouldn't be able to conduct unsheltered counts without you. So I thank you all for participating. There isn't a one of you who I'm not appreciating to the fullest extent. What is a continuum of care? Hang on a second, we'll get to the right. One more. All right. I trust that all of you know why we do this, but just in case, if there's some volunteers who are new to this process who might be tuning in with us this morning, it's all about having a continuum of care, which is a strategic plan that has us all coordinating our efforts to best utilize our resources to assist those experiencing homelessness and help them to end their homelessness and to have a home. The count helps us to better assess community needs, plan housing and services to help end homelessness, secure funding for those projects and services that we have, build a stronger community, and of course meet HUD's mandate to document the number of unsheltered people who are experiencing homelessness. We require that anyone who is receiving COC money participate in the counts. Other than that, everyone is certainly doing this because they choose to be involved, and we are once again most grateful. There are 3 HUD priorities for 2017 for the count. We will be establishing our baseline data about runaway and homeless youth this year. We've never had really high youth numbers, but this year we never know whether that's because we don't have a lot of homeless youth in Balanced Estate or because we don't know how to reach out to them. But this year, our best efforts need to be made because it will be establishing our baseline information. Veterans continue to be a priority. We still have not, although we have greatly reduced it, we still have not ended veteran homelessness. And also, once again, individuals who meet the definition of chronically homeless is still a priority. And that is people who have a disability, who have been homeless for over a year continuously, or have at least 4 episodes within 3 years that equal a year. So those are our 3 priorities for 2017. All individuals who are encountered should be offered the opportunity to participate in the count and survey process. Youth, once again, are a particular focus. Last week, to all the county leads, I sent out the document Determining Homeless Youth. There have been a couple webinars available that I believe I have shared with everyone about counting homeless youth. We have 2 youth participating agencies in the Balance Estate. We have Northland Family Services that serves Coconino County, and they are very involved in the local continuum in Flagstaff and will be participating. And the Arizona Youth Partnership, whose main offices are located in Marana, but they serve many of our counties in the Balance Estate. They are in the schools providing a lot of education. They do Healthy Relationships, Stronger Families Project, Youth Tobacco Coalitions, etc. They're in Cochise County. They have staff in Globe and Miami, which is in Gila County, Pinal, Santa Cruz, Yavapai, Yuma, and La Paz counties. Their one runaway and homeless youth grant, which funds Harbor House, is in Mojave County, up where Kingman is located. So I believe that I sent out an email to several of the leads with this information. So I strongly urge you to get in touch with their staff, because they probably not only know how to outreach to youth, but also have knowledge of those youth who may not have a permanent home. And of course, veterans continue to be a focus. We have volunteers that ask the question about military service, both about the individual they're interviewing and anyone else who may be in that household. And once again, trying to determine from the questions how long the individual has been homeless or how many times they have been homeless to help us establish how many of those we encounter meet the definition of being chronic. So there are specific questions, and it's more than one, that help us determine that chronic status. Also, if youth want to participate, I've had a couple questions about, is it possible for youth to participate in the count? It certainly is. They need trained, they need to sign ethics statements. If they're under 18, obviously they need to have permission, and they need to be on a team with other adults. But much like we know that military veterans respond best to being interviewed by other veterans, youth respond well to talking to other youth. All of us like to talk to people that are like us, and so those are 2 groups that we're reaching out to, youth and veterans, that it would be helpful if youth and veterans are interviewing them. The PIT count includes 2 strategies. We count individuals and households who were unsheltered on the night of January 24th. So that's what this training is focusing on, is getting volunteers together, training volunteers, putting your teams together, having a plan for each county about how you're going to cover the various areas, towns, places where people gather, and interview as many of those who are unsheltered as possible. However, HUD also requires a point in time for those who are sheltered. Emergency shelters and transitional housing data we will get from HMIS, and we will have personal contact and surveys for DV shelters and other pocket shelters who do not use HMIS. We, being ADOH and our consultant Candy, we are the ones who gather that sheltered information and put it together. And then, of course, all of you interviewing those who are unsheltered and sending that data to us. January 24th is a Tuesday. Pima County is doing their count on this night as well. Phoenix is actually conducting their count on Monday night, but I don't think that that will result in any issues for us. 14 of the 15 counties are doing the count. Basically, where did you spend the night of January 24th? We are focusing on persons who stayed in a place not meant for human habitation. So people who are camping, who are walking the streets, who are staying in their car, in the riverbed, under bridges, wherever the case may be, that they are not in a shelter or sleeping on someone's couch or have any kind of shelter that night, other than one could consider a car somewhat of a shelter, but that is not a place meant for human habitation. And certainly we want to count those people as well. We're going to administer our point in time for 3 days because we have such a large geographic area and because sometimes our feeding programs only feed 1 day a week. We have, in the last several years, we have expanded our count to be more than one night. So we will be administering our point in time on January 25th, 26th, and 27th. However, participants always must be asked where they spent Tuesday night. So it's not where did you spend last night unless you're interviewing them on Wednesday. For those who interview Thursday and Friday, we want to know where people spent Tuesday night. Surveying generally takes place in locations where people gather, such as feeding sites, drop-in centers. There might be a particular area of town where people hang out. Sometimes I know by the railroad tracks there can be places where people gather, bus stations, might even be a nonprofit agency where people gather. We also are, depending on your area and how many volunteers you have, surveying can take place out where people are camping or looking for them. If you're in touch with the sheriff's office, the Forest Service employees, they know where many people are. A lot of people don't necessarily like to hang out with others. They may be trying to be inconspicuous or just want to camp by themselves. They may not come into town on very rare occasions. So if we do know where those people are, and we have teams of people who are experienced and can go out and interview them, those efforts are much appreciated. We ask that the survey be administered by the volunteer or staff person, in other words, someone on the team. We do not want surveys handed out or left anywhere and just gathered later or let people fill it out themselves. Every year we stress this, and last year in particular we got back a handful of surveys. We knew instantly that the volunteers had not filled them out. It's easy to look at them. A lot of times they have cuss words all over them or they just have silly answers, and we would appreciate it if the leads would look at the surveys before returning them to us. If there are any of those for whatever reason, they don't do us any good. We certainly don't need to keep track of them. They don't need to come our way. But we really ask that you stress in your trainings that someone on the team administer the survey and get as many questions answered as possible. Complete as many questions as someone will answer. Do not skip any. The questions on the initial survey are all there because it's information we need to report to HUD. And of course, as always, we ask that volunteers sign a statement of confidentiality. When surveying, we insist that people work in teams of at least 2. We believe that teams of 3 are best. So if you have enough volunteers, we had over 200 volunteers last year. So the more volunteers that you have in your area, the more likely it is that you can have teams of 3 people, which is ideal. But we want teams of at least 2, even if you're at places where people gather, like a feeding site where someone, agency is handing out lunches. We still don't want people interviewing or working alone. We really want everyone to be in a team. Of course, you're doing this and volunteering because you care. And we want that to come through. And so we thank people for their time, for answering our questions. We ask that we stress to volunteers that they remain calm. And on our teams, it's best if we can have someone who has done this before, so there's at least one experienced person on a team. That helps everyone feel more confident and better. And so always to remain calm, which helps de-escalate any tense situations that may arise, because we're dealing with people who may misunderstand a question. They may hear it differently. They may interpret it differently. And remaining calm helps de-escalate any bad situations. We've not really had any that I know about, but we have had times when people have felt uncomfortable. If that's the case, you say thank you and you move on. This is not about pushing our way on someone or insisting that they have to answer our questions. It's all about respect, being polite, and trying to gather useful information. Another reason to work in teams is you need to be aware of your surroundings. And if one person is asking the questions, then it helps that the other person can keep an eye on what's going on, not have other strangers standing around listening to the interview. I call it holding space, so that you actually are engaged and present, not on a phone or not really there, thinking about something else, but to really be engaged with the process, even though you may not be the person asking the questions. We remind you to maintain appropriate distance and respect personal space. And that's different for everyone. Some people's personal space is quite close, others is quite distant. If someone starts backing up from you, that's a clue. Don't follow them. They're trying to give more space. Their personal space may be broader than what you were thinking of. So you want to be aware of body language, both yours and theirs. Honor requests to not participate. If someone says, no, I really don't want to answer any questions, you thank them. But maybe someone just doesn't want to answer one question. So you skip that question, and maybe at the end of the interview, you try and come back to it and say, would you consider answering this question now? And ask it, because sometimes now that you've asked more questions, the person has gotten more comfortable with you. It doesn't always take a long time to establish rapport. And so they've answered the questions that they're most comfortable with. So if you can go back and ask the question again that they asked you to skip, at least we made another try at it. And many times people will ask on the second go around. Provide people with the thank you item and any resource information that you might be handing out. It's a thank you. It's just, we appreciate that you spent some time with us, and whatever it is that you're handing out, be sure and do that. Don't forget to, it can be, whoops. Also dress appropriately. Wear bright colored clothing, comfortable shoes. You're going to be standing and walking. And you don't want to have on too many accessories. You want to carry your ID and a fully charged cell phone with you, but leave any other valuables behind. Check with the team lead. If you're not the team lead on this call, be sure and let your volunteers know how they can reach you or how they can reach someone that can help them if they need assistance of any kind during the course of these 3 days. Remember to dress for the weather, and that may not, you might not have a bright colored winter coat. I mean, another reason that we do this over 3 days is in our large geographical area, we can have many kinds of weather. So up north it can snow, down south it can be raining. And I know my winter coat is all black and comes below my knees, but I usually wear a really bright colored scarf with it, which can help. So don't think when we say wear bright colored clothes and you have a black winter coat. If you need your winter coat, you wear your winter coat. So just be aware. We want you to be able to build rapport. Those of you who are experienced at this can always share during the training with other volunteers what has worked for you. What is your opening line when you walk up to a camp or when you walk up to somebody who may have just come through the lunch line? We do know some standards that, of course, you want to introduce yourself. And you don't want to rush into the questions right away. You want to go a little bit slow, time it so that you can wait for people to respond. Not everyone responds immediately. They may be looking at you, assessing you. They may need a moment to decide whether they want to bother to continue a conversation with you. So do pause and let the other person talk before launching into the questions. You might want to, you might understand why they wouldn't want to answer any, but you still appreciate their time. Be positive about the interview, that it's important. It's the way that we garner information in order to help them. And be compassionate throughout the interview. Use their name if they give it to you, and if they give you their full name, then you might want to start out being more formal until you get permission or ask permission to call them by their first name. If all they give you is their first name, by that they then basically are saying, you can call me Tom, and try and use it once or twice through the interview process, because that helps establish rapport with someone when we use their name. We're polite enough to remember it. That's basically what that's saying, and that you listened and that you heard them. Be as brief as you can while conducting the interview, but don't hurry the questions. It's a matter of finding balance. But some people might want to go into stories or get off on a tangent. And you want to be polite, but you also don't really have a lot of time to listen to everything. So it might be at some point need to interrupt them, repeat your question, and bring them back to what you're doing. Oh, well, I don't really, you have a lot of things, I don't have a lot of time, or however you want to interrupt them and get them back to the question. Once again, talking to other people who have done this and how they have handled the situation would probably be a really good idea. Keep the focus on the individual. Don't be distracted if other people are around you, because that helps establish rapport when you are really not looking around and you're paying attention to what someone is saying and listening to their responses. If you can't hear them or they're not speaking distinctly or clearly, rather than leaning in too close and invading their space, you might have to say, I can't hear you. Could you speak up? You know, it's just an interaction between two people. And if you're respectful, then pretty much they're going to know that and they're going to feel it. And once again, I don't think we can ever be too appreciative of someone's time. We don't want to be gushing, but we do want to say thank you when appropriate. Some don'ts when surveying. Don't touch people to wake them up or invade their personal space. Don't take photographs. So if one of you is asking questions, it is not okay for the other person to be taking pictures of a camp or what's going on around them. Try not to panic. If anything makes you feel uncomfortable, back away and leave. But hopefully nothing will make anyone hit the panic button. And of course, never put anyone in danger. If it's not, you don't ever go anyplace alone and you don't say, oh, well, what's the worst that can happen, and walk into a camp of 20 strangers. So never put anyone in danger. We also want to be as non-judgmental as we can. Don't promise housing or services or market what your agency does. Where we want to give them referrals if they want help, or where can I go for this? But we can't promise anyone housing or anything else. Just make sure that they know where they can go to get it. And that, you know, that's what so have a list. Even if it's not a list to hand out, you want to know in your head where to send people in your local community. Don't give money or offer rides. People will ask you. They very well will say, well, you got any money, you know, or I could just use $1. It doesn't matter. That's not what this is about. And so you don't want to be compromised in any way by giving money or offering someone a ride. Oh, if you'll just take me down the block. Don't deviate from the surveys. These questions, we have gone over them. They give us the information that we need. And so we really ask that you stick with the survey the way that it is, and do not deviate from it. Don't separate from the team. Please, please stay together. There's always safety and comfort in numbers. Try not to wear all black. It's a very intimidating color. It's associated a lot of times with negativity. And so if someone is decked out, and especially if there's 2 or 3 people in a team and everyone's wearing black, that just can feel really overwhelming walking up to somebody. So try not to wear all black on your team. And of course, everyone signs an ethics statement, but don't share any confidential information about yourself or about what you hear. Certainly, when we hear stuff and we think we're with other people who heard the same thing, we might want to talk about it and to others. And people are they're sharing themselves with you, and it's just not anything that we want it to get out on the street that people were talked about. This is a daunting task, and we are well aware of that. To interview people, to fill out all of the paperwork that we ask to be filled out, there is no way that we think that this is a simple process. And those of you who have done it for several years, you very well know that. So the more prepared, the more training that we can give volunteers, and obviously the more times that people do it, the more comfortable that they are. So that's why we offer this. and we ask that local trainings go on, because it's really important that people volunteers have as much information as they can before they go out and do this process. In addition to the PIT survey, we are also asking that you offer or ask someone to complete a second survey, the VI SPDAT. And this is basically about getting more information to help the individuals and identify them so that we can help them access resources and plan what we need. It will help all of us in our local strategy planning if we know who in our cities, towns, and counties is experiencing homelessness. We continue to count these people every year. We continue to have about 1,000, most of them single individuals, and that's about all we know about them, is that they're single and that they're male and that they're older. And the more information that we can get, the better able we are to plan and provide them with assistance. So that's really the point of asking everyone to try and do as many SPDATs as possible. And if the VI SPDAT is administered, we do need a release of information. We also have 3 SPDATs. There's one for individuals, which as I mentioned, is the one that you will probably be using the most. There's one for youth, and there's one for families. One of the things I think is, if you are having specific teams that are just going to be focusing on interviewing youth, not every team has to have a youth SPDAT. You will know, for instance, youth are not who you're going to encounter in the early morning hours. So if you have a team that is planning on going out at daybreak, you're not likely to encounter homeless youth at that time of day. So not necessarily what I'm saying is, do all of your teams have to carry a bunch of individuals, all of these different types of SPDATs. They might want one of the youth and families, but most of the people that have been encountered who are unsheltered in our state are single individuals. So that is the form that will be most useful to you. The veracity of the data is so important, and that's why we have to have 3 different tools. There was discussion about trying to make it into one, and we would then have to take that data back out again to give us what we needed, and it just was not going to work. And we need data to be useful for all of us. So hence, there are 3 SPDAT tools. Read the questions as they're stated. People really don't need special training to do the vulnerability index SPDAT. Full assessments, naturally, but not the vulnerability index. If questions are read as they're stated, there's no deviations, try to have no inflections in your voice so that judgment is not being given. Some of the questions are quite personal, and the more monotone that they can be asked, then the less chance of someone interpreting that there's some kind of judgment with that question. So same as the survey, stop or skip any questions if a participant doesn't want to ask them, but continue and fill out as much as the survey as possible. Last year, we were fortunate enough to get 10%, and this year we're just looking to increase that. So whatever you can get is most helpful. Local coordinators, we just want to emphasize, a lot of people think that special training is needed, and there is training required for doing a full assessment, but the vulnerability index is not that many questions, and if questions are read the way that they're stated and a lot of thought has gone into them, then just read the question and record the answer. It doesn't take any special training. And then local coordinators, we know that you will be sharing with all of your volunteers about the distribution, whether you're going to give out gift cards, whether you have hygiene items to give out, whether you're making little ditty bags, socks, whatever the case may be, to express appreciation for the person taking time to participate. We're hoping that all of you have something to hand out. It's just a nice thank you. But local coordinators, that's up to you how you do that and what you're all handing out. And it may be a variety of things, certainly not the same, to everyone. Also, local leads are the ones who will be gathering all the surveys back together to send to us, and they'll give all the volunteers instructions on how to do that, whether they drop them off somewhere or whether the local lead will pick them up at different points of contact, whatever the case may be. And then leads, please fill out the survey cover sheet, which is new this year and gives us totals so that you're going to have to look at the surveys, count them, put them together, and then return them by February 15th to Candy, whose information is on this slide. And we send it to you numerous times throughout this process. So you probably already have it. I know some of you, National Community Health Partners, for instance, has volunteered to enter the VI SPDATs for Pinal and Yuma County. We thank you. If any of the other agencies are going to enter the VI SPDATs, that would be most helpful. But if you're not going to, then those get returned with the surveys to Phoenix, and we'll see to it that all of that information is entered into HMIS. But if any agency locally can enter that information, that would be most helpful. So let's see if we have any questions. Thank you. Now it is back. Is that all right? If you have any questions and you want to type it in the question category to the right of your screen, you can pull out that other, I don't know what you want to call it, another little screen comes out. I'm sure you've all done these GoToWebinars and know where it is. Can you expand it? Up by the question, isn't that the expand? Up by where it says questions to the right, the little icon, that's the Oh, we're just looking to see if we have any questions. It doesn't look like we do.
Where did it go?
Where is it?
Okay,
go ahead. All right.
Let's go ahead and share.
Okay, we will be checking it again. So please, if you have any questions, do type them in. And of course, you can always call us or email us. I know, Leah, you left me a phone message yesterday, and I'll get back to you later this morning. So now we'll go over the point in time survey. Anything in red is basically instructions for you. So once again, we point out that that the survey is for the surveyor use and should not be given to the individuals. Location is basically where are you in, like for instance, in Flagstaff. Are you downtown Flagstaff? Are you by the railroad tracks? If you want to give cross streets, that might be helpful. This is one of the reasons for this is that if this is where you encountered the person and we needed to find them again, just kind of want to know where people are when you encounter them is the reason for asking for the location. And of course, what county you're in, the date, and then what time of day you're interviewing them. You want to ask the name and telephone number of the person being surveyed. They may be reluctant to give you this information, or they just may give you a first name. Ask, but if they don't, go ahead and just continue. You know, we're asking how people prefer to be contacted. This is kind of new this year. We haven't done this before. We also know that youth tend to be used to this. They're used to being contacted by text, and they don't mind giving out their telephone number. So this is a first for us. We're going to see how it goes. And of course, we'll have a debriefing later next month with all of the leads to hear about feedback, hear about how the survey went. And that always influences what we do next year. If they don't want to share their name, we really do need the first and last initials because that helps us with deduplication. It's never been a big issue, but we also need to report to HUD how we do this. Age range. Last year we asked for date of birth or age, and it gets broken down for HUD by ranges. And sometimes that's easier. So ask the person what age range they are in. Obviously, if they tell you how old they are, you can pick it out yourself. If they will give you their birth date, that will be most helpful and is one less question that's in the SPDAT that we have to worry about. Once again, just the more information we have about people, the better able we are to direct our services to certain groups by age. I'm always appalled, actually, at the number of older people who are experiencing homelessness. And looking, since this year is especially focused on the youth, this also is real helpful for us to fill in those different categories of youth. Where did you spend the night? We have both unsheltered and sheltered categories here. If they were sheltered in transitional housing, a hotel or a motel, you don't have to finish the interview, but you may want to. So don't feel like you have to stop if they were sheltered. We won't be able to use the data in the unsheltered portion, but I don't want anybody to think that it's a waste of time or that you have to abruptly end an interview. But you can at that point, if someone says that, you know, I spent last night in jail and I just got out this morning. Thank them for their time, and you could move on to the next person that needs to be interviewed. We still are very curious about how long people have been in Arizona, especially when we look at the different areas of the state, and we look at to see how people migrate. So we have left that question in. Here's one of the questions that helps us determine chronic homelessness. How long have you continuously been without a home? And they might know, or you might need to prompt them with the responses. Has it been less than 2 weeks? You know, would you say it's been, you know, a lot of times people can't remember. And that is certainly understandable. But there might be some reference point for them, and you might want to point that out. You know, were you homeless last Christmas, a year ago? If it seems like they've been homeless a long time, you might want to come up with some kind of reference point. or have they been homeless since their birthday? So that's where experience in asking these questions sometimes can be helpful. But otherwise, just give them the prompts for the categories that we have. And of course, we just ask, is this your first time? And most people know whether it is or not. Question 4, please check all that apply, which means that you really need to go down through them. We want to know what has led people to this situation. Loss of job, bad credit, unable to pay rent. Did they just, their utilities got shut off and then they were evicted because they couldn't live there with no utilities?
Carrie, I just wanted to add, you can see on this list that if it says VI SPDAT next to it, it means that it's one of the choices in the VI SPDAT. And our thought in adding these was that if you end up doing the VI SPDAT, that you already have some of the information collected, and that might make the VI SPDAT go a little bit faster. It was the attempt to try to, at least initially, do some combination of the two. So if it says VI SPDAT next to it, that does mean that it's a question in the VI SPDAT.
Thanks. And most of these do come from that. The medical reasons, all are on the VI SPDAT, unless, of course, they give you something that isn't listed here. Domestic and personal reasons, that the home situation wasn't safe. This certainly can be the case for youth who find themselves homeless, is that their home situation wasn't safe. A lot of people, because they have legal problems. We have found that the death of a family member or partner has led to someone experiencing homelessness. So whatever applies, but as a surveyor, you need to ask each one of these to make sure that we have all the reasons that may have led to someone's current situation. And then once again, do you have or have you been told you have any of these conditions? And once again, to go through each one of them. And you'll notice it says, do you have or have you been told? Because some people will not admit that they have a serious mental illness, but they will tell you that someone else told them they had a serious mental illness. And then, of course, is there any other disability or injury, illness you would like to mention? They might want to mention something that isn't on our list, and that's useful information. Question 7 is about the military. Did they ever serve? And number 8 is, have they been a victim of domestic violence? And this is certainly a question for males and females alike. It is not a gender question. And if they answer yes to being a victim of domestic violence, even if they didn't mention it up above, it's a way to garner, did this contribute to their current living situation? So it kind of helps us figure that out. Are you currently employed? We know a lot of people experiencing homelessness have jobs. So we want to know if they're employed, full-time, part-time, etc. Do they have any sources of income? And then we get into the demographics of what is their ethnic and racial background. Do they identify as Hispanic, Chicano, or Latino? There's many conversations about which one of those words people prefer, so we use them all. And then question 13 is, HUD has changed this year. So we would like to know how you identify yourself, male, female, transgender, or does not identify as any of those. So if you start out with male and they go yes, you can stop. If the person you are interviewing is under the age of 25 and not with other people who are older than them, Then we ask that you ask, where do they sleep most often? So they may be unsheltered right now, but most of the time they might be couch surfing or staying with friends or in shelters. So we're trying to determine where our youth stay most often. So if they are under 25, or if you surmise that they're under that, if they didn't share it with you, the older we all get, the younger everyone looks. So you just have to be aware of that. And then is your current lack of housing because? And these are specific questions that come off of the youth SPDAT. That they ran away, it was a difference in religious or cultural beliefs, friends or family caused them to become homeless. A lot of times it's around conflicts regarding their gender identity or sexual orientation. And so this helps us get at, if they don't want to fill out the VI SPDAT, this helps us garner a little bit additional information that we will then be able to use to see what we can do about reaching out to our homeless youth. And it helps to know what kind of social media they use. I hadn't even ever heard of Kik Messenger until this survey was put together. So, and they may use several, or they may say, oh, I use all of that. You might then want to ask them which ones do they use the most. So it is helpful to know how best to reach them in terms of what information we're trying to get out. And then we go back. So those questions are specific to youth, those 3 questions under 14. Now we're going back to regardless of age. We want to know currently in your household who is living with you. As I said before, most people we encounter are single, but they may be considering themselves to be living with strangers in a camp, casual acquaintances, and then we want to know if they're under 18 and alone. And if any of these are checked, then go ahead and continue, where we ask if they're a female single parent, a male single parent, etc. Tell us a little bit about who you're living with, who's in the household. So how many people do you consider to be in your household, not including yourself? And we point out that all the answers for questions 17, 18, and 19 should equal the same number as what they're saying, how many people do you live with? So how many males and females, transgender or do not identify, all of those should add up to how many people are in the household. How many individuals under what age should all add up to how many people are in that household, and what are their ethnic and racial backgrounds. So those 3, 17, 18, and 19, should all add up to whatever the number is from question 16.
And please note, I'm sorry, we won't go back and change it, but you'll see on the race listing that I went back and tried to change all the questions, but I missed this one. So it should say, make sure this matches question 16, just like the other one. Sorry, we won't send out another one, though, for that correction.
And not including yourself, has any member of your household served in the U.S. military? So we asked earlier, have you served? But then when we start asking how many people are in your household, we want to know if anyone else in the household has served in the U.S. military. And that really concludes this survey.
Just so you know that this survey has been updated since the one that was sent out.
I sent it out yesterday afternoon.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yes. You have the latest and greatest if you got an email from me yesterday afternoon. Do we have any questions?
We don't ask Social Security.
We do on the SPDAT. Yes, Doug, if a consumer does not want to give out their Social Security number, the last 4 digits are certainly acceptable. And yes, if you're going to enter the SPDAT, Gina, you don't have to send it to us. If you enter it, then that's great. You just send us the surveys. Oh, thank you, Gila County, for entering SPDATs. Are we counting individuals that are in transitional housing, DV shelters, substance? Yes. That will all come out of HMIS and or surveys that we're doing. We're not doing these face-to-face surveys for those. That number comes out of anybody sheltered, comes out of HMIS or personal contact. The correct SPDAT should be version 2. That's what I sent out last week. And will ADOH be tracking contact info, or is this for local use only? Well, if it's on the survey, it will be coming back to us, but hopefully contact info will be going into HMIS, and so you'll be able to have that information on this person.
Kathy, what we will do is we will put, if we get information in terms of an email or a phone number, once I get the surveys in, I'll send you back a list as well with the person's name, phone number,
okay, great,
as well. So we'll do it both ways. So you'll have the SPDAT, but we'll also send that information back.
And yes, Marilyn, I can certainly I will send out this PowerPoint to all the county leads after today's presentation. So you can have the PowerPoint for local training purposes if it's helpful for you. This recording will be on the ADOH website, and then whatever local training you put together as leads for your volunteers. And we are running on time. That is great. Any more questions? I think it's under, is it under polls or chat or something? I don't know. Oh, there they are. Okay. I think we've answered all the questions that we
Why don't you go up because the time seems to be all over the place.
For shelter agencies that are not participating, we just send them a survey. If who's ever there wants to SPDAT them, that would be fine. But we send out a separate little survey and ask how many people were housed there on that particular night. So I...
There's no more down at the bottom. Did you read all those?
Yep, I did. Okay, everyone, I thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have any questions after this, like I said, please be sure and contact us. And happy training. Have a great day.